is game day for Indiana as they have traveled to Madison, Wisconsin to take on the 5-1 Big Ten leading Badgers at the Kohl Center, which has been more like a cold center for IU shooting. I don't know why, but 27 failed attempts, I believe, Todd. I can't even fathom that being a possibility to any team. Hell, Indiana's gone to Purdue and won, which is a lot harder place to play, I would think, over 27 years. But, man, for whatever reason, it's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't have a point of reference, so no, I can't really explain it. Other than I don't think it really has a lot to do with like flukes or streaks or things like that. I mean, this team just unfortunately, there's been several times Wisconsin wasn't even that great of a team, and Indiana got off to great starts, and for whatever reason they've blown it up there. And you know, the interesting part is Wisconsin is kind of you know, I'll call it a dumbed down version of what Indiana wants to be. I mean, they're just fundamental. They just wear you out and beat you to death and physical you and block out. And, you know, they don't generally have the best athletes in the world, but they have good basketball players. And that's kind of what Indiana maybe used to be a little bit of, probably a upgraded version of that. But, you know, I don't want to throw guys like Calvert and Greg Graham and those into non-athletic categories. But, you know, Wisconsin doesn't beat themselves. And in the last 20 years, Indiana has done a decent job of beating themselves, especially in that arena.
Yeah, you mentioned something all the time when we talk about when we do the post-game shows, basketball IQ. And it seems like Wisconsin just stays pretty level in that area. There's not a lot of up and down with that. They play smart basketball. And that's a huge difference when you continually year in, year out, do things smarter. You work harder, not smarter, or work harder, whatever the phrase is.
Smarter, not harder.
Smarter, not harder. Yeah. And which has been the case. That's something I see out of Wisconsin. They're always just even keeled when it comes to basketball IQ.
Yeah, they don't beat themselves. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. Like if you go watch the you know, the AAU circuits, there are always I'm going to give credit to like the youth coaches in the whole state. They're not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them, because we would play against Wisconsin teams and they were almost always pretty fundamentally sound. Like they've watched the videos, they've got guys working in rotations and defense, and they're just fundamentally sound. And I think it's trickled up to, you know, where it's at, and the guys who play at Wisconsin, the coaches there, I mean, those guys are just smart, not going to beat themselves. I mean, I know that's a cliche statement. I'll tank on with Zach Osterman there with our cliches, but I mean, they don't beat themselves. There's a lot to that. Now, do you go beat the Purdues of the world and the Kansases of the world doing that? That's where that's where they struggle, I'll say. But they don't struggle against the Indianas of the world, obviously, in the last 30 years.
Indiana has enough talent to play with teams. We've seen them play with Kansas, and for a bit they played with Purdue until they didn't. But this is a team that has 13 games left in this season. And even though Kent Palm has projected them to lose 12 of them, that's a projection. And that's a projection based on what has happened prior to today. Right. It's up to them to change that projection. And if they don't, it's going to be a pretty dire season. But the opportunity is there and the talent is there.
Yeah, those opportunities, they're in a great position from the standpoint of being able to prove people wrong and be a lot better than what what they are or what they're projected to be. And if you look at this team, I would say we are up there with one of the most talented, what are we, 15-7, 13-7, something like that.
12-6, I think.
Is it physically talent like that walks out on the court? Athletically, I think that we are, one of the best teams in the country with that record. Now, from an actual fundamental, like shooting the basketball perspective, basketball IQ perspective, I think that's where we struggle. I think, and I'm not trying to pick on anyone. I'm only going off of the product that I see out there on the court. And when they're making mistakes like they're mistaking, this is something I was listening to Zach talk, and you were talking about coaches and their preparations and things like that. And man, think about this. I know you love this quote, and so do I. But think about this. Going into the season, the team had, the coaches had what they thought would kind of play, how they thought this team would grow throughout the season and where they would be and all that. And so they had a plan. And what happens with a plan when you get smacked in the mouth? and they had a plan, and they got smacked in the mouth. And they've been smacked
several
in the mouth
times,
and they're still standing. They're still up, but they're they're wearing down. And right now they've got to show some major improvement, and they've got to do some things better. They've got to consistently do those things better. I will say if you take talent-wise and you look at the guys that are going to walk out on the court, Indiana, except for their next game against Purdue, Indiana is as capable of winning that game or as physically talented as everyone they're going to be up against. And I think that's the case for every team in the Big Ten except for Purdue. Purdue's built different, but I would say that I'm not just ripping Indiana and praising Purdue. Edey makes them different. Like, they're different. No one matches up with them. No one. So Indiana, physically talent walking out on the court, is as good as any team in the Big Ten except for Purdue.
I saw a stat yesterday, and there were more than enough possessions for this to be right in there, that Indiana, with Gabe Cupps in the starting lineup, they are the 5th most efficient offense in the country, which is a little mind-boggling.
It is. That stat, like, that kind of tells you that stat's goofy, because I think Gabe Cupps is fantastic. I think that he is going to be a 4-year outstanding player at Indiana. I don't think this team is at its best when Gabe Cupps is on the floor without Xavier Johnson. Like, I think the two of them together could be a good combo. But I don't think, when I said the plan for this team and they got punched in the mouth, Xavier is a big part. He's one of those big punches. I mean, he has not lived up to what the coaching staff was really banking on him being for this team. And I think Gabe Cupps is a capable fill-in at this point. I think at some point in his career, he's going to be a major focus for other teams. But right now, he's just a filler.
And I agree with you that actually should be the reality. But for whatever reason, Xavier has not been the Xavier. And with him not being Xavier, it has allowed for that stat, as crazy as it is, to become a reality. And it's not because they're so great, then it's just they've become bad. When with Xavier, he does the deal at Rutgers, then he turns around and does, he tries to give Zach Edey the forearm shiver. I'm like, what are you thinking?
Well, yeah, and part of, there's 8 layers or 20 layers as to why what he did at Rutgers was a bad whole situation. But one of those is it puts a spotlight on you for every game, not just every game, but every screen, and every single time you have physical contact with another person.
Every official.
Highlights it. Right. It highlights it. And so are they watching you different? Sure they are. Should they be? Sure they should. I get it. If this was a player on another team, what's the goofball that was from Wisconsin
Duke?
That married the girl from IU?
Davidson.
That played at Wisconsin. Yeah, Davidson. I mean, this is one of his situations. Like, he created that situation for himself, and Xavier's done it on, just a different level. And when I say Davidson is a goofball, it's out of respect, because I hated the fact that he was there for 18 years and how good he was. Like, he beat our brains in. And I hope players on other teams take it with respect when you hate them, because if I hate them, it's because they're pretty good.
I did see that there was someone granted an 8th year of eligibility.
So I read it as 9th. Like, I mean, I thought it was a joke. I thought they were kidding.
Well, I think it is
the kid
9th.
from Miami. Is that the kid from Miami?
I'm trying to get that pulled up. Yeah,
it was his 9th year. His name's Cam McCormick. And the reason he has 9 years is because apparently, I think it was when he was at Oregon, he suffered 4 straight season-ending injuries.
Wow.
Okay.
This guy is my age. I'm 26 years old. I was in the high school class of 2016. That's when this guy graduated high school.
Someone earlier said he's got kids in school, for God's sake.
Yeah. Hey, we got some sophomores that got kids in school, for Christ's sake.
Well,
I mean,
maybe there's hope for you, some more eligibility.
I mean, here's what's weird. I mean, okay, hey, God bless. I hope he stays healthy and everything works out. But I mean, isn't that just kind of like that's unfortunate? There's a lot of guys who would like. I mean, Pat Graham could still be playing if that were the case. I mean, this guy had season-ending injuries all the time. Like, can we get Alan Henderson's year back that we lost him? Like, what? I don't understand it. Like, it sucks for that guy injury-wise. I don't root for that, for even people that I don't root for. But man, how can that be okay?
This guy should be a doctor, no less.
What happens? So what happens if he gets hurt again?
Does it
year?
again?
Do they give him a 10th? Do they give him another one?
That's crazy.
When does it stop?
Yeah, the NCAA has become so they're pointless. I mean, they've always been goofy, but they have just become pointless. Because people talk about worrying about a second transfer. Screw that. You got a guy that's in his ninth year. There probably aren't many pro teams that have had a guy for 9 consecutive seasons on their roster of any sort. NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA. I mean, how many teams have had a guy for 9 years? Steph Curry, maybe.
And just think about physically and your body, getting bigger and stronger and all those things. Think about right now, there are kids who reclassify up. So there's going to be 17-year-olds playing against a 26-year-old. Like, he's got a scholarship and a mortgage. That's nice, Brian.
That's funny.
No, NIL probably paid off his mortgage. He's good.
Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, Indiana has to take on the Wisconsin Badgers tonight, the Big Ten leading Badgers, a place they have not done well, and this is going to stress them. But after that, Indiana has almost a week off before they have to go back on the road to face an Illinois team that, even without Terrence Shannon, and we'll talk about this next week, of course, but they have played a lot better than most people thought that they would after losing Terrence Shannon.
Yeah, they really have. They were a well-constructed team. Like, they've done well in the portal for the last couple of seasons. They've had some guys come in that have done a good. Terrence Shannon being one of them that have been very big, impactful players. Brad Underwood, I think, does a pretty good job coaching them and getting them, ready to play. And he doesn't take a bunch of crap off of their players. And it's these two games they could be a train wreck nightmare. Like, this is one thing I hate about where the program, I guess, is right now. I mean, this could be a train wreck. Like, they could lose these next two games by 20 each, and man, that'll be a bummer. But they're also very capable of winning these games. And Wisconsin's, I'm going to say it again. I say this every year, and they prove me wrong every year. But Wisconsin's not great. Like, they're okay. They're fundamental. They're good. They're not going to beat themselves. We're going to have to do some good things to beat them, but they're not that great. And Illinois is helter-skelter. I mean, they can either beat you by 20 or lose by 20. Like, they are not – I don't think they're the most mentally tough team in the world. And so you could get in their brain too, especially if you can get a lead on them. And they'll take some really bad shots if you get them behind. But that's two games that, yes, I think we're capable of winning them. I won't say that about every game, but I think these two games we are capable of winning them. Unfortunately, 2024 Indiana University basketball team, we're capable of losing them both by 22.
And not that you had to go through this when you were playing, but this team going to a place where it's not like they have not heard the fact that Indiana has not won there since before any of them were born.
Yeah, I mean, in all reality, no kidding. Trey Galloway and possibly Xavier Johnson are the only two players who that even crosses their brain. And I know we talk about it a lot. I know with social media, they probably read it on Twitter more or whatever it is, but they don't think about it. They don't care. They weren't responsible for those. You know, Mbako doesn't know anything about the last 20 losses that are there or whatever. Neither does Khalil Ware. Malik Renew didn't win there last year, but I mean, this is his second opportunity. You don't think about that as a player near as much as we make it a big deal as fans. And when it starts to pile up 27 years in a row, yeah, it does become a big deal at that point.